we're going to get going. I'm just going to pray, and then we'll dive right in. God, thank you for junior high. That seems kind of weird to say, but at the same time, it is true. You've given us this gift of having junior hires in our lives, and we don't take that lightly. And we just ask that during this time that we would just have a good discussion, and we would have a good understanding of how to better help our junior hires pursue you and grow in their faith and develop their own. And so, I just pray that right now as I speak, God, that it would be beneficial and it would be good and honoring to you. In your name I pray. Amen. The junior high phase. It's an exciting one. It's the phase where nothing you do as a parent is cool. Nothing you do as a parent is cool. And what they feel right now is what matters most. Urgent, in fact, is what they feel right now. It's the phase where you hear the phrase, I know that already. Yeah. Who's going? Who's going to be there? And that was before, not now. And so those are the phrases that you hear more often than not in junior high, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have experienced this. And as far as phases go, there's none I like more. I love junior high. It is maybe newborns, just because they're newborns. Everyone loves newborns. But junior high, they're special because they're fun and they're silly and they're goofy and they're usually upbeat and they're loud, and I love that. It's a lot like me, and so I really love junior high. But it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and we know that. Their brains are growing really quickly. Once they start this phase and they go into it, and then the first half of the phase, they get really forgetful. You actually have to reteach them stuff that you've taught them before, and you're constantly going, you know this already. But it's not because like they are just being obstinate or anything. It's their brains are actually changing, and they actually do forget some of the stuff that they've learned in the past. They become a lot more disorganized than they probably were before, and they get a lot more overscheduled. Like, they want to be involved in anything and everything. They just want to be a part of everything. They almost have FOMO, fear of missing out. And so that's a huge part of the beginning of that phase. At the end of that phase, like the last half, they start getting into like being super sarcastic and way more interested in pop culture and a lot more smelly. And so don't let them buy Axe body spray. Stick a deodorant is fine. Please, on behalf of every youth leader, please don't buy any more Axe body spray. In the last half of that phase as well, they're going to experience mega relationship drama. I don't know if you guys remember that when you had girls in junior high. Grade 9, end of 8, 9, it was like drama. And they start stressing about grades more than they did before, and that's usually girls, not guys. And their interests changed a ton, all the time, to the point where you guys get whiplash because of all the changes in clothes, in music, and even in friend groups. And you're like, well, what happened to that person? And that is just kind of where they're at and who they are at that point. And even though there's not a single one of them that is identical to the other, there are a few universal truths that come with parenting and leading junior high kids. Physiologically speaking, they're going through a ton of changes. A ton is happening in the junior high phase. Girls are beginning to outpace guys both emotionally and cognitively. And guys are starting to experience height and weight gain and changes in their hormones and all that stuff. And junior hires' internal clock is changing. You'll find that they're having a harder time going to sleep earlier, like early before 11 p.m., but they still need 9 hours of sleep. And so like waking them up in the morning is harder and harder. And it's actually a physiological thing. It's not something that they necessarily can control as much. It's interesting, in the States, there are a couple of school districts that have been experimenting with times of school to help with the internal clock of kids. And so they'll start at like 11 a.m. and go until 6 o'clock. and they've been finding a lot more success in their students because that's their peak operational time. And so it's actually really interesting when you think about it. And so like it's probably a good thing to let your junior hires sleep in on weekends, because they want to and they need to, because their bodies are just kind of going through these changes. Socially, junior hires become way more interested in pop culture than they used to be, and also using pop culture slang. And so that one's intimidating for a lot of us, and it does require us to brush up on popular culture and popular events, knowing who's beefing with who and who's dating who and who's, doing what. And so grabbing a magazine every now and then, going onto YouTube and checking out what's trending, going onto iTunes and looking at the top 10, turning on the radio. Don't be afraid to Google slang terms and going onto urbandictionary.com and finding out what these slang terms mean. Be forewarned, though. Some of the definitions of a lot of the slang that these kids are using is alarming. But at the same time, the junior hires have no clue what they mean. They just know that it's something that people are saying. And so I have definitely been the destroyer of some innocence in times because of slang that junior hires are using. And I'm like, don't use it. And here's why. And then their jaws drop and they go, I'll never use that word again. And so, yeah, it's good to be in the know of what's happening in pop culture, because that's something that they are heavily invested in at this age. They are constantly wanting to negotiate the rules. They always want to push the envelopes a little bit. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. They need to be able to share their opinions. They need to be able to voice how they feel. And quite frankly, that is their number one thing that they love to do, is share their opinions and how they feel. But they need to do that. You need to give them options too. And remember, they're at a stage right now where they're very similar to when they were 2 years old, and they wanted to do it themselves. And even though they're not going through the same kind of toddler tantrums that they used to, the emotions are really similar, and it feels like they're back to being 2 years old. It's crazy because it's a scary thing, because we have to give them control a little bit, and we have to give them choice, and we have to allow them the freedom to choose some things. Your junior high kid needs a listener more than they need an advisor. They still want your advice, but they really want you to listen. They might say they don't, but they actually do. And the best way to actually make those inroads and to pave that is to show them that you're paying attention by asking them questions, by repeating what they've said to you. Saying things like, how can I help? How can I pray about this? What's the best way for us to pray together in this? That gets you way further in communication than just stating your opinion. And then eventually they get to that point where they'll ask. But it takes some time, and it takes some patience, for sure. Junior hires, they place significant emphasis on peer and non-parent opinions. Hands down, you as a parent are the most influential person in your kid's life. Even if you don't feel like that's true, I've done research myself. I've read a ton of research. Over and over again, it is overwhelming how influential parents actually are in their kids' lives. However, when they hit junior high, other people's opinions matter too, a lot more than they used to. And they're starting to look to other people. And so it's really important for you guys to surround them with healthy friends and healthy mentors. For you, Carol, as a small group leader, know that your words carry a ton of weight in their lives and in this phase. So use your words wisely. I used to start my junior high small groups with the statement, I am going to say something dumb to you that's going to hurt your feelings. Please forgive me in advance. Know that I care about you, and we'll work on it together. And that actually helped me a ton in building a relationship with these guys, because my words did carry a lot of weight. And there were times that I hurt kids. And I've definitely tried my best to acknowledge that and to work in that. And so knowing that our words carry weight is kind of important, especially for us who are not the parent. And so we want to always come alongside parents and reinforce what you guys are doing and partner with you. But for you guys, your junior hires now think you're embarrassing. They want you to drop them off at the door, don't come in, don't talk to anybody, don't talk to me if you see me in a crowd. And it's kind of, it's weird because like, it's almost a little intimidating. How do you figure out the new social cues? When is it okay to approach them? Is it okay to give them a hug? Is it okay to say I love you in public? Like all of those things. When is it okay to say something and not expect the eye roll? You know, and so it's an awkward phase for you guys as parents too. It is weird to have junior hires. And your junior hire, and we talked about this a little earlier, they might answer with one word. They might answer all your questions with one word, or an eye roll, or a grunt, or an all too clear facial expression. But don't mistranslate those cues. They actually want to have adult conversations. They don't want to be treated like a kid anymore, even though they are still kids. They want to have more and more grown-up conversations. And so for you guys, it's important to be available and to be patient, because sometimes it seems like it's pointless because they're not really responding, or at least you think they're not really responding. One of the things about junior hires that I love is that they're really smart. Just ask any of them. They think they know better than anyone else and that they're smarter than anyone else. And it's such a burden because, man, oh man, it is hard telling you over and over again and explaining it to you one more time. I've explained this to you. Why aren't you getting it? I'm sure you've heard it. And so it's okay to challenge them sometimes and go toe-to-toe with them and to challenge their thoughts and to challenge their understandings, their opinions, their beliefs and stuff. But just remember that it's also important that they personalize what they believe in this phase. Encourage them in their personal discoveries. Help them to make their faith their own. For a junior hire, everything happens in a crowd right now. They walk down the halls together in pairs. They go to the bathroom together in pairs. They go to the mall in herds. Like, they just want to be together. They're starting to build huge social media platforms at this age. And the best place for them is wherever everyone else is. That's what they want. They don't want to be left out. And so at the beginning of this phase, now is what really matters. It's not what you said last week doesn't matter. It's just that they've forgotten. They don't remember what you said last week. And it's not that the future doesn't matter. It's just not as close as the present. Now matters to them. And so who's here? What are we doing? Those kind of things are just so pressing to them. They're hyper aware of their present reality. And that means there isn't anything more motivating than actually right now. And so that's actually something that we can use as leverage as parents and as youth leaders. Leveraging the right now to our advantage and appealing to their present circumstances. You know, as we're reading scripture or as we're talking about faith things, we can go, okay, so how does this apply to your world right here, right now? How does this apply to how you treat so-and-so? How does this apply to how you talk to me? How does this, and actually having the right now conversations is great leverage. And because when we understand that that's what matters to them, then we can use that. This phase is also a time of identifying talents. By the end of this phase, a teenager has a more stable sense of who they are. And quite honestly, they're probably a little frustrated that you didn't know who they were all along because, you know, it was so obvious. Listen carefully to who they are. Pay attention. Stalk them openly. I tell kids all the time that I creep on Facebook, Instagram, Visco, TikTok. I creep on their accounts all the time, and I let them know that. And all of them are like, okay, cool. Because they know that I'm present in their lives, and they know that I care, and they know that I'm interested in who they are. And who they are does change. And so it's actually important for us to be continually rediscovering who they are and knowing where they're getting their acceptance from, where they're finding acceptance. Because we have a specific role in a junior hire's life right now. Our role is to affirm their personal journey and to help them make their faith their own. And so it's really important for us to let them know that we know what they're going through, without having to say, this is what I would do if I were you, or this is what I did when I was a kid, or just saying, hey, I saw that your friend posted this. And that's it. Just walking away from there. And in their head, they go, oh, they noticed. And not asking any follow-up questions, but sometimes just stating that you've noticed something means a huge amount to them. Junior high kids are in a season of personal discovery. Not everyone makes the team. Interests and abilities change, and long-accepted values come into question. They're asking hard questions, and that's okay. They're not sure they believe what you believe anymore. They're not sure if how you do things is the right way. And that's okay, because they're starting to figure out who they are. It's a time of heightened self-awareness. And so when we constantly affirm that the journey that they're on, that helps them gain stability. That helps them know that they're not in it on their own. It's important to keep in mind that they think like engineers and a little like philosophers. We help them learn when we help them connect the dots. And so don't be afraid to give them hints and clues to the questions that they're asking, but also make them feel like they're part of the process and not an audience to the process. That's pretty big. Ask direct questions that help them understand their own opinions, thoughts and their feelings, their opinions, their thoughts, and their feelings. Because junior hires are asking the same 3 questions over and over and over again throughout this whole phase. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And where do I belong? I've seen it over and over again, and it's so true. These are the 3 questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And where do I belong? And these aren't necessarily questions that you can actually answer for them. And that's tough, because you want to. You want to be able to provide that. Because you do have a sense of who they are and who they may want to be and where they belong. But when you drive them towards self-discovery, you get to capture their heart, and you get to provide them stability, and you can help them to value the community that you're in. You can help them value church. With so many things that are changing so fast, it is really hard for a junior hire to find their place. They might think that they know everything. Do they ever? But they don't. And they need support. And that's why attending FBC Youth, and that's why serving on Sundays is so important for them to find a healthy acceptance, to find people who will help them on that journey as well and partner with you in that. Because your teen at this age is most motivated by acceptance and freedom. And you help them in those motivations when you affirm their value and you give them choices. The more you normalize all the non-normal developments and changes about this phase, the more they understand that they don't have to have all the answers right now. And that's the tension that every parent of a junior hire faces, and really senior hires too, is giving away freedom in small increments. But really, that is the only way to build trust. As a leader, you might be faced with a situation where you have to provide options for a student in your group. Allow them to make decisions when it's wise. It'll grow your relationship with them like nothing else. One exciting thing about this phase is their growing ability to process information in a complex way. They're moving from being concrete thinkers to being abstract thinkers. And that's actually really fun. You start having those grown-up conversations with them. They start being, a mini adult. They're not a young adult yet, but they show glimpses. You'll start seeing what your kid is going to be like when he's 18. And that's exciting. It's actually a cool thing to see the transition that happens. Usually happens around midway through grade 9, where they start becoming really abstract thinkers. And you can pose them questions that really stretch them. And they're good with it. And that's actually really, really exciting to me, for sure. And that's a time where we can just invest in their spiritual growth in a huge way. And it's not just regurgitating what they've been told; they're processing it. You get to provoke their discovery so that they get to own their own faith and that they get to value church. And that's so important, because as that happens, when they graduate, it's theirs. It's not yours. When they leave you, they'll still have faith. They'll still value church. And that's what we're aiming for, right? And so by now, your teen is well aware of the habits that you guys have as a family that make your family work. And so making church a priority is huge. Don't just attend, get involved. Don't let it be the only time that you talk about faith either. These guys are asking hard questions. Don't be shocked, at least not visibly. And don't be worried if they doubt right now. It's not toxic to their faith. It's actually the process of personalizing what they believe. Make your home and make our small groups safe places for them to ask questions. Show an interest in what they're learning. Ask them, how can we pray about this together? Ask them, or make the statement rather, the way you live your life shows others who Jesus is. Like right now, what you're doing shows shows people who Jesus is. Let them ask questions. So you can say to them, what other things do you actually wonder about? What other things are you wrestling with? What are you unsure of? Let them ask questions. Let them know it's safe. Ask them open-ended questions like, when do you feel closest to God? Or what's something that God's teaching you right now? That one's a fun one. I ask kids that a lot in our youth ministry, and that one's always kind of fun because one-on-one, they can answer that question really well. In a group, not so much. But yeah, one-on-one, they're good at it. Here's something. Talk about your own faith. Talk about your relationship with God. Say things like, I've been reading in my Bible this, and this is what I've been learning. I've been finding that I connect best with God right now when I share your testimony with your kid. Hearing how God has changed your life will have a major impact on their faith. Don't be afraid to share who you were before Christ and emphasize the difference God has made in your life. I've had conversations with kids where it rocks their worlds, where they actually start processing faith in a very different way because they've heard their mom give their testimony. Lastly, it's probably a good idea for you to create and foster relationships with other parents in all seasons of life in our church. You're going to need their support and wisdom right now, but also when your kids go into the next phase. Some of you guys have been there before, and you can help others who are on their way up. Time with your junior hire is going to go way quicker than you think. There's approximately 298 weeks left until your grade 7 kid leaves home and moves on to what's next. 260 weeks for a grade 8 kid and 208 weeks for a grade 9 kid. It's not a lot of time, but there's time. And so be encouraged by that. Come alongside them, help them make their faith their own. Remember, it's just a phase, but don't miss out. That's pretty much everything I had to say. Are there any questions? Anything that you guys want to say? Anything you want to add or no? Did it sound here's the thing. I would say that I'm an expert in junior high kids, but I'm not an expert in your junior high kid. And I'm not an expert in parenting junior high kids because I haven't done that yet. But I've been spending the last 20 years with junior hires. And so I get them. I know what makes them tick. But at the same time, every junior hire is different. And so I'd love a little bit of feedback. If I'm dead on, if I'm way off, like, what do you guys think? I saw a lot of nodding. And I saw a couple of smiles and chuckles, even from Jason. And so, what are your thoughts? We don't have much time, though. Just throwing that out there.
I think you don't have to live pretty hard. Like, I definitely see my own children in what you were saying, for sure. And you kind of came at it from a different perspective. And you went, oh, so that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was nice to hear somebody else talk about it, from a little bit more of a less involved perspective. I mean, involved, but not overly wrapped up in it like a parent.
Yeah, not every day. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm not with them every day. I only see them once in a while, and it's also in a very controlled environment where there's expectations and kind of stuff like that. It's they're not as safe as they are at home, and that's actually one of the reasons why kids are worse behaved at home than they are outside, is because home is safe for them. And so I try to remind myself of that with my daughters a lot, where it's like, okay, they're acting up because they feel safe. I have to try to keep it that way. It's not always easy, though, is it? And so, well, thank you for listening. Yeah, I want to encourage you guys. It's kind of funny because I have history with these three, and I know that they're good parents, and I know that they've gone through this stuff. And Carol's just Carol's a youth leader who's doing small group with grade 8 girls. And she has successfully raised 3 girls of her own. And you guys have done a great job with your kids and are still going through that. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of junior high life. And yeah, exactly. That's why you've got the gray. And so, no, I appreciate that. And I like I said, I love junior high. It is my favorite phase next to newborn. And they're just so much fun to hang out with, and they are such a challenge, but it's so worthwhile. And if we can grab them when they're in junior high, and we can help them just make their faith their own and actually know why they believe what they believe and be solid in it, then first off, it makes the high school years a lot easier, but it also prepares them for when they're on their own. And then they become mature believers as adults. And then you can sit back and you can go, this is awesome. So.
Big thing. I think that what's really kind of been weighing on me this year is just the need for, and I'm just speaking for junior high girls because that's what I'm working with, but just the need for them to just be, to somehow grasp, like you said, at that personal level, making it personal, how much God really loves them, so that they can pull their identity from Him and not from everything else that's bombarding them in culture. Yeah. And that has been weighing really heavy on me in my prayers for these girls.
Yeah.
As I just spoke with them.
Yeah, and those, like, legitimately, those 3 questions: who am I going to be, and where do I belong, are huge. Yeah. And so, anyway, we need to wrap this up. So I'm gonna pray, and then we can head back into the auditorium. God, thank you for our junior hires again. Help us to come alongside them. Give us wisdom. Give us patience. Lord, please don't test us on that. But ultimately, Lord, help us to love them the way you do. Help us to see them the way you do, and help us to utilize each other. So that we can bring you the most glory, and we can provide our students the most support they can get. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you for attending this. I appreciate it.